I believe we are live on Facebook. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I am Jessica with I'm Greater Houston, and this is our Tuesday Talks, where we come together to talk about all things mental health and all things mental health related. Excuse me. So, again, thank you so much for joining us. And this week, we're going to talk to the amazing Juanita Rasmus. Thank you so much for joining us, Pastor Rasmus. How are you today?
I'm great. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Thank you for coming. I know you have so much going on. I've kind of been following you on social media, so I've been keeping up with your book promo tour and some of the things that you've been doing. So I
Well,
appreciate
thank
you
you.
taking the time out to
My pleasure. NAMI has a special place in my heart, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to join you today.
So tell us, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Juanita Campbell Rasmus. I'm a native Houstonian. I grew up in the famous Fifth Ward, Texas, just about 5 minutes northeast of downtown Houston. Some other folks who lived in that neighborhood and left a significant imprint on me are Barbara Jordan, Mickey Leland, Rodney Ellis, Kirby John Caldwell. All those folks grew up in Fifth Ward. And so it was a community of people who were high achieving, people who believed in supporting the community and making a difference for community, being good neighbors. And so it certainly left an impression on me in that regard. My husband Rudy and I are co-pastor St. John's downtown. It's a United Methodist church. Don't tell the Methodists, they don't know. We have so much fun. They just don't know who or what we are, but they know we believe in a higher power that we name God. And so that's kind of where that is. And so the reality is the work that we've been doing for almost 30 years now. We're celebrating our 29th year of ministry. We have been providing services to the homeless community in and around downtown Houston. Many of those that we have served over the almost 30 years were men and women who were dually diagnosed, dealing with substance abuse and mental health challenges. We have gone from providing showers and laundry and meals to seeing that the real next step for helping a person to transition into to anchor their humanity was housing. And so we started a housing experience, and it's through our community development corporation called Temenos, which is a Greek word that means a safe place. In Greek, um, many of the travelers would carve out places in the rock, and it would be the place where they would shelter for the night. And so that word temenos comes from this notion of carving out shelter, carving out a safe place, carving out a place of refuge. And so Temenos Community Development Corporation has been doing just that. We've got about $30 million worth of housing in downtown Houston. We've partnered with a longtime member, Tina Knowles Lawson and Beyonce and Solange to help get that work done. And we're now the Bread of Life, our outreach that have been providing services to the homeless community. We began to notice a significant shift, and it was one that we didn't orchestrate, but that nature did. Hurricane Katrina shifted us into becoming a place where people came when life was turned upside down for folks who never expected to be displaced by hurricane. And before we knew it, we literally had 1,000 people from New Orleans on our doorstep at the Knowles Rowland Center for Youth. And so we became for some reason the word is not coming to my mind right now, but a place for people to come in the midst of crisis beyond just the challenges of systemic racism and poverty. We became a center for emergency kinds of situations. And so we have served during Hurricane Katrina and been serving through Harvey. And now through, here again, we find ourselves serving in very unique situations, global pandemics being one of them. COVID-19 has seen us move from serving 500 families a week with groceries and supplies and cleaning products and that kind of thing, to now we last week served 2,100 families. These are families that are in late model vehicles. These are not people who expected to have to need the services of the bread of life to help bridge them through the unemployment that's been created because of COVID-19. So, who am I? All of that to say, I think the first thing I would say is that I've been called to be a servant. I think I've been called to be a contemplative, which basically means a person who invests time with God in a way that um, hopefully helps to offer peace in the world. If I told my husband, it's a good thing he came along when he did, because I probably would have been a nun in a monastery, because I just have such a passion and longing to be a person who helps people to know, to facilitate, and to experience inner peace. And so that's kind of who I am. I'm a wife, I'm a mom. My husband and I have been married for 35 years. He always adds a year. He says, don't take that extra year away from me. Okay. So we'll say 36 for Rudy's benefit, right? I'm a mom. My two daughters are incredible. I'm so grateful for them. I think one of the best gifts that any parent can say, I did not raise my children to be my friends. I tried to be a good parent, right? But the result of that and some therapy is that we've become good friends. And so for me, that's probably been the gift of parenthood, is that you learn your deficiencies as a parent and you find out ways of repairing the breaches that have been torn and created. And so they make me very, very proud and very grateful. And now I'm in Indianapolis because I'm a grandmama. And so
Oh,
I have a 3-year-old
congrats.
grandson, and I have a well, she'll be 4 months old on Thursday, a 4-month-old granddaughter. We have Jaden, our grandson, and Jolie, our granddaughter. And so who else am I? I am finding out just how loved I am. And that's not by accident. I've been engaging in spiritual practices that are helping me to ground myself in this presence that I name God, but this presence that breathes us all when we go to sleep at night, however you choose to name that presence. So that's a little bit about me. Oh, and of course, I had a major depressive episode diagnosis. And so I am living with a mental health diagnosis. That's who I am.
That's a lot.
You think, Jessica, you think?
That's a whole lot. But I loved how explained the different aspects of your life and how you kind of incorporated it all together into one being of, Juanita. So I think it's very telling of your journey. It's also very telling of who you are and where you are in your life right now, and just what you've been through. So thank you so much for sharing those different parts of you. So let's
Thank you,
see,
my
where do we
pleasure.
start? um, Actually, we'll start backwards. I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned your major depressive episode and that you are living with mental illness. Um, so first of all, congratulations on your recovery.
Thank
Um,
you.
and
And that's
for
day to day, every day, you know,
exactly.
because the reality is, and I'll say this right up front, Jessica, because I don't want to give people false illusions. My psychotherapist told me when I was diagnosed, he said, "When you're going to have to live with this diagnosis for the rest of your life." And when he said it at the time, I felt as though I was being locked away in prison or something. It's like, how could he say that to me? And then years later, in reflection and seeing him, I understood exactly what he meant. You see, and my therapist was Pittman McGehee, who was the prominent therapist in Houston, who's now in Austin. Pittman's, when he said that to me, what Pittman was saying, and I didn't understand it at the time, is that when you have when you have a mental health diagnosis, you will live with it for the rest of your life. Now, the key is how early you decide to gather tools to empower you to live with it. So often, as with not just with mental illness, with physical health diagnosis, you find out you have diabetes and you think, well, all I have to do is take the insulin. Well, no, there's more to it than that. It's about learning to live with this diagnosis. How will it affect my relationships? How will it affect my vocation? How will it affect my health and well-being? How will it affect my time and money resources? It's learning to incorporate the diagnosis into every area of your life. It's not just saying, I'm just going to take the medicine and expect it to do everything for me. No, there are changes that have to be made, new ways of thinking, old belief systems have to be changed. And I think for me, one of the reasons that I wrote Learning to Be was because I wanted people to know that you can live with a mental health diagnosis. The key, lean in, everybody, lean in towards your screen. Lean in. Come on, Jessica, lean in towards your computer. Is that you have to learn to live differently. Got it?
Got it. That is, that's good stuff. You took so many of the words right out of my mouth. And I have a similar struggle. I haven't been diagnosed with a mental illness, but I love that you related it to a physical illness. So the physical illness that I struggle with, for instance, is lupus. And I thought, just like you said, I thought, okay, they're going to give me my medicine, I'll be fine. No, I have to change my diet. I have
That's
to,
right.
change my sleeping patterns. I have to make adjustments to the physical limitations that my lupus has imposed on me. Um, so I definitely get what you're saying, and it's so essential, and it's definitely one of the things that NAMI talks about is how to live your life. It's not just managing your mental illness. It's not just managing your mental health. It's managing your life now. It's a part of who you are. So yeah, girl, you said a whole mouthful.
Well, Jessica, I'm gonna tell you something. One of the things that I realized, and I think neuroscience is helping us to see this, is that whether the diagnosis is a physical illness or a mental illness, the invitation is to befriend the experience. What most of us want to do is our anxiety raises up and we just want to get the heck out. We're running away from it, whatever the it is, whether it's a diagnosis of the mind or the body or a divorce or shattered dream or, loss of a job, whatever the it is, that becomes the thing that creates our dis-ease. In essence, our life is no longer at ease, where we've gone from a certain kind of orientation. That was my life before August the 27th when I was diagnosed, right? Whatever that orientation was, some of that orientation has to do with why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing. And so the opportunity is to move from this place where we had a certain kind of orientation to now the diagnosis says, this is disorientation. This is disruption. And the goal is not so much to stay in that disrupted state, but to create a new orientation, a new way of living, a new way of being. I often ask people when they are diagnosed, whether it be a mental health diagnosis or physical health diagnosis, Google your diagnosis and then say, famous people living with this. You see, the reality is we can live with the diagnosis. We will learn, if you choose to, you can learn to live with the diagnosis by learning to live differently. Jessica, you said it. I had to change my diet. So, as an example, one of the things that I found out with my diagnosis is that caffeine and sugar are not my friends. You know, we seem to forget that our bodies are literally chemical factories. So, the things we take in are releasing and producing chemical effects. It's kind of like a computer, garbage in, garbage out. So I have to pay attention to what works best in my body. And so for me, I realized that caffeine and sugar wreaked havoc on my nervous system, and they did not support the medications that I was prescribed. I realized that therapy was going to be a part of my life for probably the rest of my life. Why? Because I'm learning to change my perceptions about some things, the way I process my anger, the way I experience conflict. I'm learning new tools to empower me to what? Live with the diagnosis. I am learning to let go of some things that I had been attached to. And for me, I am finding so much freedom because I realize that we all have a before diagnosis and after diagnosis narrative. The freedom for me is to know that I have the power to write a new and lean in. You got to lean in on this one again. Lean in towards the computer. Life giving narrative.
Ooh.
A life giving narrative. So often we get a diagnosis and we feel like something has been ripped out of our life.
Like it's just over.
There is, and I wish I could remember this term, but there in Japanese pottery, when a piece of pottery is broken,
Oh, I know
they'll take
exactly what
and
you're talking
fill
about.
it with plaster and then they paint it gold.
Oh,
You see, our brokenness has gold in it. Our individual job is to mine the gold. What's the gold in this? The GOLD. What's the treasure in this? What's the value in this? I often say, and I talk about it in Learning to Be, how I felt like Humpty Dumpty sitting on the wall, having that great fall, couldn't be put back together again. It took me a long time to realize the gold, the value, the treasure, and not being put back together the way I had been. Because you see, the old Juanita would have just fallen again, cracked open again, because it was set up in me. So much of my DNA, both of my grandmothers, my father, my sister, we have all, my cousins have all been diagnosed with major depressive illnesses or bipolar disorder. We've all experienced that. So if I had just tried to rebuild my life like it was before, I just would have had another crash, you see?
right.
But what I recognize is I'm grateful now, years later, that I couldn't be put back together again because all the people would have put me back together the same old way. I see now that there's gold in this experience, and the gold is empowering me to write a new, a vibrant, a creative. See, now I can say to everybody, you know, I don't do that no more because that cracked me the last time, so I'm not going there. And I can make fun of it and I can be with it and I can befriend my experience and I can set healthy boundaries for myself. I
That's
can
so
learn and
cool.
I'm learning to let my yes be yes. The things I say yes to are the things, got to lean in on this one, lean in on this one. Come on now, lean in, that are life giving. I'm learning to say yes to the things that are life giving. There are some things that don't give me life. They frustrate me. They cause me to relapse
Mhm.
when I don't pay attention, when I don't notice what I'm noticing. I hope that helps.
Girl, yes. Again, you said so much. Knowing your triggers and how important it is, staying away from those behaviors that you know will send you into relapse, that will cause you
Exactly.
more harm than it brings good. Setting boundaries and sticking to them, saying no and meaning that no, right? A lot of times
Exactly.
we say no,
Exactly.
but we let people talk us out of it, or we say no, but we'll really try to make a way around it. No, stick to your no.
Sure.
If you know
Sure.
that that no is critical to maintaining your personal mental and physical health, set that boundary and mean it.
Yeah.
And the people
Exactly.
who
Well,
are
no, go on, go on.
that love you will understand that. And if they don't,
that's okay too.
that's okay too.
Because here's the deal. I realized that every time I relapsed, it was just me. I was the only person there. I was the only person there who could help me recover and get back on my steps again, get back on my process again. That the people that I said yes to when I should have said no, they were nowhere around.
Mm-hmm.
They were out living their best life while I was trying to scoop myself off the sidewalk. So yeah, but it takes time to learn that. You know, it takes practice. But here's the key. This is a phrase. Lean in. You gotta lean in on this one. Lean in. Notice what you notice. Notice your life. Pay attention to it. Notice what you're noticing. You know, notice. So often when we relapse, we don't want to think about it. But notice what you were feeling. Notice what choices you made. Notice what decisions, because those can either be deposits in the bank for fortifying your well being, or if you'll ignore them, they'll just keep being withdrawals and you'll keep finding yourself overdrawn at the bank of life.
Mm, I hear you. And also, I love how you phrase a personal responsibility in it, right? Like you're talking about those people not being around and you paying attention to yourself, to your triggers, to the things that you enjoy, to the things that you don't, and listening to your own body and your own mind, and taking that journey. And you're not alone in the journey in that there are other people who are going through what you're going through. We have therapists, you have family, you have mental health professionals, but you are alone in that it is your responsibility to make that personal change. Nobody can do that for you.
That's right.
And it does take that time to learn yourself and to know yourself, but it starts with the willingness to do so, right?
Exactly. Oh,
Right,
I'm
like you
so
said.
glad you said willingness. Willingness is my key word. There's something I want you to Google, and if you can find it and put it in the chat, Jessica, it's called the map of consciousness. The map of consciousness shows, excuse me a second. I'm going to mute because I got a call.
Okay, go ahead. I'll start looking up the map of consciousness while you get yourself together. And it does sound like something that Neil or one of my coworkers have referenced in the past. Spell consciousness, that would help.
So the map of consciousness shows us how our level of thinking, if we're operating out of shame, if we're operating out of fear, if we're operating out of anger, if we're operating out of even grief, you know, whatever level you're operating out of, that level of consciousness is going to produce a certain kind of result. Okay. And so what I realize is that for me, the highest level of consciousness that I can, we can either spiral down in our feelings and emotions, or we can spiral up. The map of consciousness just lets you see that if you can spiral up to willingness, and so the way I always say it is, I'm going to invite you to bring your hands in front of you like this. So you're going to clap your hands. Now, here's the phrase: I am open and willing to receive and to give love. Now bring it back in front of you. Come on, everybody. Y'all can do this. I am open and willing to receive and to give love. That word, Jessica, willingness, is transformative. Willingness is the ability to stay open to how love is going to flow in our lives. All of us want to know that we're loved. All of us want the opportunity to experience love, to give love, and to be loved. And I think so much of what challenges us with the mental health or physical health diagnosis is that if we will stay willing to be open to receiving and giving love. Now, love can show up in different ways. For me, love showed up as a therapist. It showed up as the right psychiatrist at the right time. Love showed up for me as a partner who was willing to sleep with me when for weeks I had not bathed, and the aroma was, the stench was horrible to me. I don't know how my husband got in bed with me every night, but he was open to love. When we stay open to love, insight comes our way, instruction, guidance, friendship, support, community. By staying open, by being open and willing to receive love. So let me give you an example. When I was diagnosed the first time, and my therapist, my psychiatrist rather, had given me some medication, and it was making me, I had gotten through the point where I was sleeping 18 to 20 hours a day on my own because of the diagnosis. And then once the medication started to take effect, I could tell that I could stay awake a little longer during the day, but I was still exhausted. And so my body physically was recovering from compassion fatigue for the work we do at St. John's. And it was very intense at that time. We were doing 50 funerals a year to men and women who had been diagnosed with HIV and AIDS, when many other African American churches weren't burying people. And St. John's became again a gateway. We said we'll eulogize a person who's had this horrible experience. Yeah, heck yeah, come. We're open to love. And so one of the things that happened for me is in that process of staying open to love, I was in the psychiatrist's waiting room, and a lady who was in there was talking, and she was just chatting with me, as you do in the office. And so somehow I told her how the medicine was making me feel. And she said, "Oh, yeah, that happened to me too. Just ask the doctor, can you take it at night instead of taking it during the day?" Now, if I had been closed to love, closed to insight, closed to information, closed to love, I would have never been vulnerable with that woman and said that. And I don't know if I ever would have said it to my psychiatrist, that I'm having problems staying awake. But her willingness to just share her own story and allow me to open up to her gave me the capacity to have a tool. So when I went in to see my psychiatrist, I said, this is a problem I'm having. And I was just talking to one of your patients in the waiting room, and she suggested, is that something that could work for me? You see, when I was diagnosed, I didn't have language to explain the panic attacks I was having, to explain how I felt like I was going to die every time the phone rang in our house. I didn't have language. And yet, the one thing I could do was to say that I am willing and open to receive and to give love, and not know how the love was going to show up, not know how the support would show up. So when you said willingness, Jessica, that is a critical word, especially for those of us. Now, keep in mind, y'all, we're fortunate in many ways. We know what's going on with us. There are so many people who are struggling even more than we are because they have no clue to what their diagnosis is. And so stay open by being willing to receive and to give love. Thank you for saying that. That's one of my catchwords.
It's an important one, like you said, for
It
so many
is.
reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a second and I'm gonna do a few NAMI plugs because you hit on so many things that NAMI as an organization can assist with. So our support groups and educational programs do help explain a little bit about what mental illness is. And these are all peer-led programs, meaning these support groups for people with mental health issues are run by somebody who's certified, but also has mental health issues. And then we have support groups for family, where those are also run by the family of someone who's living with mental illness. So these people understand what you're going through. And the community, like Juanita said, and opening yourself up to not only love, but to receive love, that community can kind of help touch on some of those things that you may not be aware of yet. Something as simple as, switching your medications from day to night, which can have a huge effect, right? And that's just one example of things that someone else who has been through it can help you with along through your journey, either living with it or supporting a family member. One of the many calls that we get is, I have a family member who is living with this mental illness, and I can't make them take their medications, or I can't make them go see a doctor. And it's heartbreaking because they're not in that phase where they are willing and open yet. But as a family member, you want to give them that love and you want to give them that support. And that's something that NAMI can help you with. They can't make your loved one do what you want them to do, but they can provide resources, and they can also provide support and community from people who are going through it as well or have been through it as well. So definitely, if you are living with a mental illness, if you are the family member or caregiver of someone who's living with mental illness, please give NAMI a call. Our website is www.namigreaterhouston.org, and look into our support groups and educational classes, which are all virtual right now because of the pandemic. So just a quick plug because it hit on so many points. The whole point of these discussions is that somebody gets help, whether it's through NAMI or through Bread of Life or St. John's or anywhere else. The point of these discussions is that people understand that they're not alone. We're going through that, and hopefully, I saw a Facebook comment speaking about how inspirational you are and how you reminded someone to care for themselves and how to care for themselves, and that's the whole point of this. So if I sound redundant for the people who have listened before, maybe this little piece isn't for you. So that person who may be listening for the first time and didn't know where to go for help, or didn't know what to do for help, or didn't know how to open themselves up to love. So thank you for allowing me that moment. And
oh, absolutely. That's an important word. I found NAMI about 10 years after my experience had begun. And I have constantly said that NAMI, I wish that my family and I had that resource when I was first diagnosed. We didn't, but as soon as I found out about NAMI, I felt that it was one of the places, along with a number of other organizations in the city of Houston, that I had to tell people about it. And so when I preach on Sunday, sometimes I will talk about, the fact that St. John's has a NAMI support group that meets virtually during COVID-19 on Tuesdays at 6:00 p.m. Why? Because I understand the impact of having support, having a safe place that's caring. As long as I am open and willing to receive love and to give love, you can be supported. You can be supported. You can live with the diagnosis.
Absolutely. Ooh, girl, I'm tired. That was a whole lot. We're only halfway through the conversation.
We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it.
I just want to sit and process, all of that wonderful knowledge that you just dropped on us like it was nothing. So let's back up a little bit. You mentioned compassion fatigue, and I love that you use that phrase. That's actually something our programs director, Angelina Hudson, had been wanting to explore options for support within our own organization. One of the things that NAMI provides is a warm line for people to call in if they need help, if they need an ear. And those are mostly staffed by volunteers, but our staff and our volunteers, our program volunteers, they work hard to, help other people. And again, most of these people are people who are living with these things themselves. So how do you balance that? How do you balance making sure that you are healthy while also giving so much of yourself to your nonprofit organizations and missions and in charity work?
Again, I mentioned the need for healthy boundaries. One of the things that was one of those gold gifts out of my experience was I found out that I was an introvert, and I'd always thought I was an extrovert. I had taken Myers-Briggs, and it always said that I was more of an extrovert than an introvert. And so by finding out I was an introvert, it explained why I was exhausted when I would leave church. and I say church as the place where I did my work, my office, I would be exhausted. And I didn't recognize that was because my temperament was such that I needed to not hear so many crises during the course of the day, and to create a different set of boundaries for myself. Now, what I'd say to us is during COVID-19, and I have to say this because we are experiencing, here's a word for you. My daughter shared this word with me. It's called allostatic load, ALLOSTATIC, allostatic load. Have you ever gone to a concert that you were looking forward to? I remember when I was a kid, when the Jackson 5 came to the rodeo, I was so ecstatic. Michael Jackson was at the rodeo. My parents took my sister and I to see it. In the parking lot, I could feel the energy. All these young people, here we are all trying to get to see Michael Jackson, all the girls especially, we're all like geeking, right? And you could feel this great energy because of the anticipation of seeing the Jackson 5 at the rodeo. That's a positive spiraling up of allostatic load. But allostatic load can also spiral down, and many of us are experiencing that, not being able to think as clearly, finding ourselves feeling more exhausted during the day. Why? Because we're engaging in ways and with the umbrella or the cloud of global uncertainty. And so each of us is carrying a measure of that. So if I had to offer you something, it would be this acronym, BREATHE. And so if you've got a pen and paper, grab it so you can write down this acronym for moving through this space that we're finding ourselves in. The B is in BREATHE is do that. Let's do that. Take a moment, if you will. Put your feet flat on the floor. Sit up tall and straight in your seat. Turn your hands palm side up and place them on your thighs. Now, I invite you to take a deep cleansing breath, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth like you're blowing through a straw. Again, breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Keep breathing that way, in through your nose. Continue to breathe as I talk. That kind of breathing helps to calm our autonomic nervous system, our fight, flight, and freeze. If we'll take breathing breaks during the day, like smokers take smoking breaks, they don't ask anybody for permission. They say, I'm going for a smoking break. Let's take some breathing breaks. Breathing in through our nose, out through our mouth. And let's teach that kind of breathing to the children in our lives because our kids are also experiencing increased anxiety. So moving through this space, the B in the acronym BREATHE stands for breathe. The R stands for rest. Give yourself permission to take some breaks, perhaps more frequently than you normally would have taken breaks. Take a break and go walk outside. If it's just to pace up and down the sidewalk, get some fresh air. Remember, breathing is going to increase the oxygen in our body, which helps with the clarity in our thinking, helps to minimize anxiety. So go outside. I remember one day having my girls go outside. It was raining outside. I said, let's go outside. And they were like, what? And we went outside and played in the rain. When was the last time you played in the rain? And it was so much fun. My girls remember it to this day. So go outside, even if the weather is a little inclement. It's just rain. You ought to know by now you're not going to melt. I know you sweetness and all, but you're not going to melt. So go outside. But the R is rest. Find ways to rest. Many of us are investing a lot of time on Zoom. This is the way we're getting our work done. Our children are doing Zoom to uh, get their schoolwork done. That is a different kind of stimulation, and it takes a little something from us. So give yourself some breaks, rest. In between classes, do the breathing. That'll help you also. So B is breathe, the R is rest, the E is exercise. Exercise helps to move the oxygen through our body. It helps to release the carbon dioxide in our body. So get up, and sometimes just, matter of fact, let's do it right now. Just wherever you are, stand up and just march in place. Just march in place. Wave your hands like a cheerleader. Turn from side to side and just march in place. Why? Because we're sitting more than we've ever sat before. And so give yourself permission. Get up, put on your favorite music, and for 2 or 3 minutes, just shake, rattle, and roll. Do your favorite twist. Do whatever it is that works for you. Get up, exercise. Get that energy flowing and changing and healing. Allow that flow to happen in your body. So B, breathe, R, rest, E, exercise, and then A is affirm. Speak life to yourself. Affirm the life you want out beyond COVID-19, out beyond the current mental health crisis you might be experiencing. What is the life you would love to have? So, as an example, I've been inviting people, don't think about 2021, that's too recent. It'll be here before we know it. But what about 2023? There's no claims on 2023. What would you love? And begin to affirm that. What would you love as it relates to your relationships? Do you have a partner, a life partner in your life that you're excited about? If you don't, and that's something that's important to you in terms of relationship, begin to think about that. 2023, I'd like to have a partner. Yeah. And I would like somebody who understands my mental health diagnosis, or at least who is open and willing, all right, to receive insight about my mental health diagnosis. I want a partner who's engaged in outside activities, because I like outside activities, or whatever. What do you want? What would you love? So often our diagnosis can be all consuming because we're not thinking about anything else. So affirm what you would love in your relationship area of your life, in the health and well-being area of your life, in the time and money freedom area of your life? Do you want to be more philanthropic in 2023? Do you want to be able to write a check to NAMI or other organizations that are helping to support your well-being? What do you want your well-being to look like in 2023? Dream out past your current condition and affirm what you want. The best way to write an affirmation is to always begin with the word I am, because that tells your mind and it tells the universe what your intention is. In 2023, I am fit. I am balancing my exercise with healthy meals. In 2023, I am experiencing joy with these new friendships that I've created. Men and women who are doing exciting things that I never would have imagined. I am surrounded, notice I said I am surrounded by creative writers and gifted artists. What is important to you? And use the phrase I am and say it every day. Say some of those things every day. If we were in my office, you'd see I have affirmations on my wall, and I keep them there so I can see them when I'm working, when I move past my office, when I leave for the day. I'll have all these affirmations reminding me of the life I want to live, the life I love. So whatever affirmation you write, put I am first, because whatever you put after I am is gonna come looking for you. All right. So A is affirm. Then T is tune. Tune into your discontent. Tune into your longing. You see, when you tune into what you're discontented about, it helps to point you towards change that might need to occur. If you find that every time you talk to Joe Ellen on the phone, you hang up feeling worse than when you called her, that's something to tune into. Perhaps you don't need to talk to Joe Ellen for 30 minutes on the phone. Shoot, you might just need to send Joellen a note. Hey, Joellen, just thinking about you. Tune in to your areas of discontent, and then tune in to your areas of longing. I believe in all of us. There are some things yet to be born, yet to be created, yet to be dreamed of, yet to be desired. And when we get this little longing, ooh, I remember thinking when I couldn't even get off the sofa, sleeping 18 to 20 hours a day. I remember thinking, one of my girlfriends called me and said, we're planning a trip to Colorado and we're going to go hike Mount Quandary. Do you want to go? In that moment, there was nothing in me that had the capacity to do that. But I just went on and said, yeah, count me in, right? That was going to be 6 months down the road. That gave me something to long for, something to look forward to. So make sure that you tune in to what's discontented in you, not life-giving. And then tune in also to what is life-giving, what you're longing for. Tune into it. And then the H in breathe is hydrate. We got to drink water. Remember, our bodies are made up of chemicals, and the medications that we're taking work best when we stay hydrated. Keep your water with you. I use my phone. I set alarms so that every hour a song starts to play on my phone, and it reminds me that I need to drink some water, because I can go the entire day and not drink one glass of water because I get engaged in what I'm doing. I get focused, and then the whole day is gone, and the only water I had was the water I used to take my medicine with. So know that your body functions best. The medication functions best if you'll stay hydrated. Then the last E in breathe is engage. Who are you? What do you love? What do you want? What do you need? What creative activity have you always wanted to be a part of or to engage in? I remember there was a point when I wanted to learn how to do pottery. And so I decided, all right, I'm going to find somebody who can teach me how to do pottery. And so often we'll put things off saying, well, I can't afford that, or I don't have the time for that. Bull donkey. We make time for what's important to us. So make your important things have time. Engage in creative ideas and creative things that you want to do. And you might say, well, I'm clueless as to what I want to do. So I often, matter of fact, my psychiatrist did this. She said, so Juanita, when you were a little girl, what were the things you really liked to do? And at the moment, I couldn't think of anything, but I just kept asking myself, when I was a little girl, what did I really like to do? And so then I started thinking about it, and those ideas started coming to me. And so maybe that's the place you start. It doesn't have to be the place you stop, but engage in things that give you life. One of the things that I did was I loved, as a little girl, my grandmother had a concrete porch. And so I would walk up the 3 or 4 steps. And then she had these pillows next to it with banisters on them. So I'd grab the banister and I'd step on the pillow, and then I'd get up there, and I was Superwoman. I'd jump off, right? And that was cool as long as she didn't find out. Because if she found out, then she'd say, Juanita, don't do that. You're going to fall and break your... Right. And so I talk about that in my book, Learning to Be. The necessity of engaging in things that give you life, even if they scare the hell out of the people around you. The things that you engage that give you life. And so in one of the chapters, I always forget if it's chapter 12 or 13, I talk about going skydiving. It was something I've always wanted to do. And so I did. And so the invitation is to engage in the things. Sorry about that. I forgot to take my daughter's calling me, so it's coming up. But anyway, engage in the things that make you happy. If eating a little piece of chocolate every day would make you happy, by golly, eat you a little piece of chocolate. Now, see, for me, the caffeine, I got to back away, right? But find what makes you happy. Get some watercolors and use some paper and just make you a placemat every day that you paint. Find something that you can engage in, because we are more than our diagnosis. Remember the Japanese art of pottery. When a piece of pottery is broken, they fill it with plaster and they paint it gold. They celebrate it. This is an opportunity for you to celebrate your life with your crack, knowing that your crack has been painted gold.
That's so amazing. Let's talk more about the book. Tell
Thank you.
me, tell me what inspired it. Tell me how you got the courage to write such an amazing and honest and open uh, book.
Well, I got to tell you, at first I didn't want to write this book because
I knew you were gonna say
I
that. I don't know
knew
how.
I knew I was going to have to be vulnerable, because it would be the only way I could tell my story. And it wasn't so much about being vulnerable. I think it was, at first it was hard to kind of relive all that pain, but at the same time it was the gold in the crack of my cup, and the cup was my life. And the beauty of it was, by the process of writing the book, it helped me to even more clearly own the changes that I had made in my life. And so I started the book the first time about a year after my crash, and that was too soon for me, I think. I started it again about 10 years ago, and I didn't think I had the capacity to write it. And so I hired someone to help me, but that didn't work out. And so about 3 years ago, my grandson was born. And so I came to Indianapolis, and I gifted my daughter and son-in-law 6 months of care for my grandson. And then we would put him in daycare. And so while I was here, it was really clear to me. Spirit spoke and said, "You're here to care for your grandson, and you're here to write your book." And I believe that I had enough healing that it flowed. And so I'm grateful for that. But the other thing that happened is that for about 10 years, I have a friend who's an editor with the InterVarsity Press, who published the book Learning to Be, Finding Your Center After the Bottom Falls Out. And every year we would meet at a conference. And every year she would say, "Juanita, when are you going to write that book?" And so finally, she became the impetus for writing that book as well. So it is my memoir about my experience. It's about the story I have been telling myself, and how that story changed and had to change if I was going to live with the diagnosis. One of the reasons I wrote the book was to encourage people like us who are living with diagnosis to know that they can live, to give yourself permission to live. But then also so that people who love us could have some sense of compassion for our journey and for what the experience is like. But also because, thirdly, I wanted to help tear down the walls of shame and um, help to build some rapport. I felt if we could tear down the brick wall of shame, then we could build some bridges with those bricks. If we could elevate the conversation around mental health in America, period, that we could begin to um, see a whole new way forward in terms of our nation, its policies regarding mental health, medical treatment for mental health, accessibility, all these various things that come
Right.
up when you begin to talk about mental health. And so I was hoping that it would help elevate that conversation as well.
And it does. I think anytime we're having these conversations, anytime we're reading those types of books, it chips at that stigma. It just a little bit more and a little bit more. And I would love to see in my lifetime that stigma be completely broken. But
Absolutely.
until then, we just have to keep doing our parts to chip at it. And
Exactly.
one thing I have
Yeah.
learned with Nami is one of the biggest ways to do that is through telling your story. You're authentic, vulnerable. I love that you use that word, story. So I have not yet read the book, but if it's half as inspirational as you've been just in this one little 50-minute, 60-minute conversation, I know it's going to be awesome. So I'm sure you guys can kind of see the background, but her book is Learning to Be and Finding Your Center After the Bottom Falls Out.
And I want to say this to you and your guests. InterVarsity Press, IV Press, InterVarsity Press, just sent me a note, and they've selected my book as one of their Christmas bonus books. And so they're going to take 40% off, encouraging people to stock up for Christmas stockers, stocking stuffers, and employee gifts and incentive gifts and any kind of gift you want to make it. And so I want to encourage you to go to IV Press, InterVarsityPress.com, and you can order the book for 40% off between now and Christmas, as long as you use the code Xmas, Xmas. I think it's Xmas 20 or just Xmas. But anyway, put that code Xmas in there and they'll give you 40% off the book. So buy cases, send them to all the people who don't understand you. Send them to all the people that you know are experiencing challenges during COVID-19, because the unspoken aspect of COVID-19, we've got the social distancing down, but we've not talked about the mental health protocols. And so I believe that my book, Learning to Be, Finding Your Center After the Bottom Falls Out, offers us some mental health protocols. At the end of every chapter, I talk about my experience. And then at the end, I give a section called Pause to Reflect. And it's some of the kinds of things I've just talked about when I gave you the BREATHE acronym, but there are other tools in there as well. One of the tools I want to leave you with today is this. It's called the Examine, EXAMEN. You can Google it. The Examine invites you every night before bed to think about your day. You see, many of us live our lives on rote, and we're not thinking about what we're thinking about. We're just doing stuff. And so the Examine invites you at the end of the day to ask yourself, what gave me life today? What was bread for me? What made me feel good? What made me feel like I was a part of the universe? What made me feel accepted? However you want to word that, what gave me life? And then you reflect on your day, and you'll begin to see that there was something there that you probably missed during the course of the day. I remember doing it one day, and I missed the fact that this person had given me a compliment. And I was so busy in my head thinking about the next thing I had to do, I didn't hear the compliment. So I never acknowledged it. What gave me life today? Then you give thanks for noticing what gave you life. Second part of the Examine is you notice what took life from you, what drained you, what left you feeling disgusted and hurt and busted or whatever, whatever you might have been feeling. Notice that and give thanks for seeing it. Then decide how you can do it differently the next time. Notice what gave you life and give thanks for it. Notice what drained you or took life from you and give thanks for that. And then here's the key. Do more of what gives you life. You can live with your diagnosis. We can paint gold in our cracks. And you can have the more expansive life, a life you'll love living.
Wonderful. I did put the link for the publisher in the Facebook. Also, the code to use. So if you guys are interested, please take a look at that in the Facebook chat. We're going to have to wrap things up. I am going to take a couple of questions if there's someone online that would like to type a question on Facebook, or if there's someone in Zoom that would like to ask Juanita a quick question before we go. There's a little bit of a delay in Facebook, so I will go ahead and get some more of my thank yous out to you, Juanita, for joining us, and everything that you said. Again, it's just so on point and so insightful. Charlotte says the book is amazing, just like you are.
Thank you, Charlotte.
So I do know that you are. So I definitely believe her when she says that the book is just amazing as well. We've gotten plenty of positive comments from Facebook, just talking about how inspirational you are. Before you go, Katie would like to know what inspires you the most, Juanita.
What inspires me the most? The fact that there is in all of us this breath of life that I call God. You may name it any way you choose: presence, light, love. That there's this breath in us, this power in us that is always inviting us to grow, to be our most expansive self. You see it when you are walking along the sidewalk and there's a little flower pushing up through the sidewalk and the crack in the sidewalk. You see it when you find yourself experiencing a dream or a longing. You experience it. That is what gives me life, to know that within all of us, we're being called to be our most expansive self, our most fantastic self, our most brilliant, beautiful, bold, blazing, excited self. And that's what gives me life, is to know that it's not just in some of us, it's in all of us.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. If you all have any additional questions for Juanita, please just feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat, or you can send it to the Facebook DMs directly, and I'll get them to her via email. But I guess
and Jessica, also, I'd like to ask if your guest would consider walking with me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I'd love to keep them abreast of some things that we're doing. I try to make my space an encouraging space. So I try to put meditations on there from time to time. So join me on that space. I'd love to see you there.
Absolutely. If you'll do me a favor and just shoot me via email the links for that, I can go back and put it into the Facebook chat.
You can put it in now. Juanita Rasmus is my name. Juanita Rasmus, Rasmus. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that stuff. And if you put Pastor Juanita, you can find me that way too, Pastor Juanita Rasmus. And then my website is juanitarasmus.com. What a joy it's been to be with you, Jessica, and your guests today. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely the same. Absolutely. Aditi has a quick question that she'd like to ask you before we wrap up. She's one of our awesome non-migrator Houston
Hi, Juanita and Jessica. This was just such an awesome dialogue to listen in on. One thing we've been working on is trying to find different ways to introduce the idea of therapy or counseling. And you've just been so beautiful in the metaphors and ideas that you've offered us. And so I just wonder if you had to speak to somebody who is either doesn't know what therapy or counseling is about, or is reticent, or is perhaps doesn't trust that process. In your own words, how would you describe what it has been like for you, or what it means to you?
Well, there have been several gifts to me out of therapy. Number one, it's been a safe place for me to discuss things that I don't want to talk about with anybody else. I have always felt safe to discuss some of the dreams I've had during my experience of diagnosis that were nightmares and terrifying to me. It was a place where I could talk about those. It was also a safe place where I could get tools to help me learn how to communicate my needs better to my employer, to my faith community, to my husband, to my children. So for me, it's always been a safe place to discuss what I needed to talk about, but sometimes felt inadequate to discuss with others. Mm-hmm. And secondly, it's been the place where I've gotten tools that have empowered me to be able to, like crutches, they helped me to stand on my feet until I could stand on my own. And so I highly recommend. And if a person needs a biblical reference, the Old Testament says a wise person will seek counsel. We would go to see a cancer doctor if we had been diagnosed with cancer. If the brakes in our car went out, we would go to a mechanic who specialized in brakes. If our roof leaked in our house, we would call a roofer to repair the leak. So our minds need specialists, and therapy can provide that.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
You're muted, Jessica.
Thank you. I was having a whole conversation. So basically, I was just saying again, thank you so much for joining us. I've enjoyed so much our conversation and listening to you and everything that you've shared with us. So just thank you, thank you, thank you. And
My
again,
pleasure.
if you guys have any questions, please send it to us through Facebook, and I'll forward it to Miss Juanita, and check out the book. I know for sure it's on Amazon because I've seen it there. I put the website into the chat. And again, if you guys have any questions, please let us know. But thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back next week, same time, 1 o'clock on Facebook Live on our Greater Houston site. And as Juanita's taught us, be open to love today.
Yeah.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're
And
welcome.
Jessica, I'd like to talk to you for a minute. Can we stay on for a sec?
Absolutely.
Okay.